Another starter box is here.
Spiky bits.
So the eagerly anticipated Feast of Bones box, which is already sold out at least at the US Games Workshop web store, and I would imagine at most of their stores here going into the holiday season, is finally out now. It's $195, so it's up $35 from the Loon Curse box set, which also immediately sold out as well back in May. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if they're making enough of these things, but and there's some interesting comparisons to the value and the contents of both the Loon Curse in this box that we're going to talk about here in a second. But just to give you an idea, more of a visual, because we don't have as good of a visuals as the actual box on the website, let's just go over what comes in this box, and then we'll look at the values before we show you all the sprues and what comes inside, and then actually put some of the models together. So here you can see two of the new characters here, the Ogre Tyrant and Vorkmordian. I don't know how to say that, but sounds about right. And then you've got all the rest of the contents here. So you got the Mordecai and the big four-armed dudes. I forget what they're called. Then the regular troops. And then for the ogres, just stuff we've seen since 2004. Gluttons, so the normal box is 6 gluttons, 2 out of 4. So this is actually half a box of lead belchers, and the cannon. So that's basically the contents that are going to come in here, and we'll go over some values and stuff and open this up and put them together here in a second. We did an estimated value breakdown over on the site. Here you can kind of see our thoughts on how much this would all actually come down to. Now, of course, it's $195, and it's, like I said, it's $35 more than it was before. And I'm not sure if this is still available from places online like Miniature Market or Dice Egg Games, but you could obviously try. Chances are a lot of the stuff's going to be on the secondary market for higher prices. Here's a better look at the Ogre half, and then we kind of go into the pricing. So $40 for the, I guess what they're called, Gluttons now, the Iron Blaster scrap launcher, $35. The Tyrant model will probably sell for $40 when it comes out by itself, but I imagine on the secondary market it's going to be going for a lot more because it's probably going to be the only way to get it. And then the 2 lead belchers, so it's actually $20, but a box is $40. So that gives you a grand total of $135 right there. And then the Undead side, or the Bonereaper side, you can kind of see what's going on here. Now, G-Dub said that all of these squads, except for the special character, are going to be available separately, in which we know they're coming out next week. But this guy, apparently, this is the only way to get him for a hot minute at least. So I'm not sure how pivotal he is in the armies, but he might go for more on the secondary market. Although I imagine when he's sold separately, he will also be $40. Remember, these are just estimates. The Morghast are $60. The Necropolis Stalkers are $50. And this is just estimated prices going off of what we know right now. And the Mortec Guard at $50. Now, these will actually be up for pre-order if they aren't already right now on GW's website. So this actually might be off a little bit. Like I said, it's estimated $335. Now, interesting comparisons. $195 for this box as opposed to $160 for the Loon Curse. However, this box has 25 models, higher value estimated, but Loon Curse had 30 models for less value. So very interesting parallels right there. Make whatever point you want out of that math, but just be aware that, yeah, it went up, but the value kind of went up too. So I don't know if you're paying 1 for 1 on the value, but everything's pretty much gone up from Games Workshop at this point in 2019. So I'm not really surprised that we've got price points that are just higher in general. So the box itself is laid out very well. It's pretty thick, you know, it's pretty much your standard size box right there. The instruction manual and everything is shrink wrapped in underneath all the sprues so it doesn't get damaged, just like we've seen in the past. And then there's a little mini poster as well to kind of help protect the sprues and such, but I already pulled all that out. And then there's the bag of bases. No new base sizes or anything like that. A lot of 50s, a lot of 40s, a lot of 25s. The troops are actually on 25 mil bases. Of course, the bigger, bulkier stuff is going to be your ogres, and then you've got some of the newer sprues here on this side. Of course, the ogre sprue, which also looks strangely big and bulky as well for being made, 8 years since we saw our last ogre miniatures. And then the rest of the stuff right here too, and we'll jump into that here in a second and show you all the different sprues. But basically, it's pretty well laid out for the most part, not just kind of thrown together like we saw a little bit with the Blood of the Phoenix box. And they also included some game aids for playing with the models that come in here. So you got the flip out War Scroll cards for the models that came in here. Oh, well, some of them aren't flip out, some of them are just the actual cards, which is really cool to see. And then the bigger ones, of course, flip out because the ones with more options and different things, which definitely makes more sense, and I like that kind of format. Then you got the instruction manual, and I have to admit, we'll save that for last. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Then you've got the card punch out, and in the little campaign book, there's a little story about why they're fighting and what's going on, what the bone tithe is, and all that stuff. And I haven't read all through it yet, but it looks pretty interesting so far. So this is your narrative realm of battle, kind of, and there's got features and things happening, kind of like the weather table, but not quite. And then there's a couple of different specific battle plans in here, like we've seen in the past. 2 different War Scroll battalions. Obviously they're just narrative; they're just for the models that come in here, but they give you a couple of bonuses, so keep those in mind too. And then it gets into the actual War Scrolls. If you don't have the War Scroll cards or whatever, you know, it's all right in here if you just want it one handy dandy place. But what I did like was how they labeled the game aids, all the punch outs and the, you know, the rulers, command point tokens, Pal of Doom markers, big name markers for your Tyrant, Bully of the First Degree markers, and Hunt and Kill markers for those command abilities right there. So it's really easy to kind of follow along. It's laid out. It's definitely very, very pivotably geared towards the new person. And of course you got the core rules insert. I think it's what, 8 pages or something like that. We've seen this many times in the past. So literally the same thing that comes in Soul Wars, it looked like. Now this is where I'm generally impressed. This is probably the best laid out instruction manual I've ever seen from Games Workshop, to be quite honest. They've got pictures of the sprue, pictures of the base sizes, pictures of the model, and then they even go so far as to break down like what all the different symbols are, what the different shading is right here. Like blue is an assembly, yellow is the plane where you gotta mate the parts, and then it just kind of goes into all the different things. And then inside of each individual instruction, they tell you a lot of times too, like, hey, you can trim these little nubs off and make multiple poses of them holding the little halberds. Very, very cool stuff. Like, I've never seen an instruction manual laid out quite like this. I mean, maybe for like the Baneblade or something like that, but not with all the diagrams and things. So they're definitely getting better and better as they go on in the years. And of course they have all the paint jobs and stuff back here. Now we're only going to talk about the new model. So here's the Master of the Bone Tithe himself, and he's the typical computer slice and dice type deal. So I wouldn't imagine there's anything too crazy going on with him. And then you've got the Morghast, which we've seen in the past. And then here's the Stalkers, which look great and have 2 different weapon options right here as well. So I think we'll probably do the four-armed version right there. And then back here, they've got the multiple heads and stuff. And I've already pre-heard that is a little difficult to get together and very, very fiddly, but there you can see the assembly right there. So definitely pay attention when you're doing all that. And then just the normal Mortec guard guys here. And then they have 2 different options. You can use the spear or the blades. No idea what that means in game, but we'll find out. And then the Tyrant himself looks to be very similar to how, you know, some of the ogres went together in the past. Now, obviously, there hasn't been an ogre kit since, I think, 2011 when the Beastclaw Raiders came out, when they rebooted Ogre Kingdoms there back in 8th edition Fantasy. But here we are now, and they look, this diagram and this instruction looks very, very similar to what we've seen in the past with the feet going on separate and all those different things there. And then there's the existing stuff, so we're not going to really cover that. So let's take a closer look at some of the sprues and then put these bad boys together. Here goes the Tithe Master himself, and you know, it's just a small little sprue right here, but we saw a lot of these as rumor engines and arts and things, and there's the heads of kings, and then of course he's got his little coffin, and I guess his it's not his head that talks, it's what's inside of his chest is actually what does the talking. But don't know a whole lot about this till we get this kind of assembled and take a closer look at it. But I imagine, like I said, from the computer slices and dices, that it's going to be pretty easy to kind of see and put together. Here's the Ogre Tyrant. And he looks to be very similar, like I said, to some of the kits of the past. And I do like the very dynamic cape and his posing, kind of holding the hammer and also the spear up in the air, because why not? Why not have 2 weapons? This looks very similar to the Warnfang kind of backbone trophy rack sort of thing. And then he's got the feet that kind of go on separately, and his gut plate. Where's the head? There's the head right there. So That one looks pretty cool too. So great looking details. I love the very stylish, only the best when it comes to shoulder armor pads for this guy right here. Let's fish out some of the new Bonereaper kits too. So here's our first two infantry kits, like full-on infantry kits. So we got the Mordek Guard and the Stalkers here as well, and they're both the larger 2-sprue kind of kits as we would expect. And you can see there's lots of spacing between the parts right here, but they are definitely very much just like Nagash, just like Archon the Black, you know, very, very bony and kind of pointy. And because they're on these planes, like you can kind of see right here, all of your mold lines and everything are going to be right down along all of the, well, the spiny parts, and all of the areas that are going to be really fiddly to kind of scrape them off, which is unfortunate, but you know, that's just the way it is, I guess, when it comes to these kits sometimes in the 3-dimensional kind of, you know, way they make these injection molded plastic parts, which is kind of definitely unfortunate. So you're gonna have to probably spend quite a bit of time trimming down mold lines. But I really like these shields, and the detail is definitely out there, like something that we haven't seen in a very, very long time, as far as, you know, like the etchings and the things like that, and just a lot of areas that you can do glow work and different things, and then all of the you know, kind of spectral shroud type deal. So lots of I would say the details where you need it, but also not not everywhere all at once, just to kind of make it obnoxious, I suppose. And then the guard, you obviously get 10 of the spears or 10 of the hand weapons as well, depending on which way you want to equip them. You're not pigeonholed into anything. And again, they look great. You know, lots of tabard work. You know, bone, skeleton things. You can go dark bone. You can go light bone. Just kind of depends on what you want to do, and just work your accent colors on all of the, you know, areas where there's like tabards and different things, and you could do glow effects, all sorts of different things. Those are the shields, I believe. Oh, these heads look great. Look at these heads. These heads are amazing looking. So very, very cool stuff here. I love the shields, very similar to what we just saw on the Stalkers. And the halberds look great, so you could do some really cool kind of glow effects depending on what you want to do, and have some really muted kind of dead earthy tones on the straps and everything right there. So all in all, it looks really good. Let's take a look at the standard. Yeah, so the standard's got the design on it as well. So very, very cool stuff so far. I'm definitely liking these guys, and I can see the appeal they're gonna have for everybody there. Let's put them together and see exactly how tough it is. So here's the Tithe Master, and you know, it kind of looks like in the camera that there isn't a lot of detail, but I think that's just because of the different depth of the miniature. It's having a hard time focusing, because when I turn it there, you can see the kind of zombie king heads right there. And that looks like an elf. Uh-oh. And no, the detail's great. Very well done. You know, kind of super bony armor, or bony just like detail just in general. Lots of room in here to do some different effects on the tabards and things, and do some glow effects on that. The talking head, the spirit head, and then of course he's got his decree right there. Lots of chances up here for a lot of cool paint jobs, like OSL and different things, and then some design work on the back. We saw that. I think that was the rumor engine, and then more of the bony detail. And so you can go a lot of different ways with this. You can go super bright, you can go super dark, but it leaves you enough blank detail area to kind of get your transitions and your fades looking really right. But there's a lot of detail in other areas to kind of make up for it. So I'm kind of digging it. Like at first I was kind of like, well, there's a lot of flat areas. And then when it comes to these guys, there's a lot of not flat areas. And we'll compare and contrast all these sizes here in a sec. So like I said, very, very much like Nagash, Archon the Black, the Morghast themselves. I mean, you can kind of see where some of the gaps are, and you can see where some of the mold lines are right along the planes, just like I said. But these guys look great, very well. You know, the flattest areas are of course on the tabard, so you could have some fun on that. And then look at the head right there. That's just crazy. Those are literally 4 different bits kind of combined together, and I guess the head spins depending on which one's fighting and which skill it needs right there. So that's really interesting stuff. They got a lot of cool fluff, cool backstory, and those swords have a lot of flat areas, similar to what we've seen with the Morghast as well. And no matter which way you're looking, he's like looking at you. You can't sneak up on this guy. He's on a 50 mil base. Here's how he compares to the Tithe Master. So not quite that tall, but definitely kind of bigger. You can pick him out on the board for sure. And then just your rank and file troop right here. Very well detailed as well. Definitely reminds me of the old Tomb Kings in a lot of different ways here, because their shields had a lot of flat areas, where these shields have a lot of flat areas, and the armor has a lot of flat areas and lots of areas to do fades and stuff. But overall, it's not too much detail, and it's not a lack of detail either. So I like it. I like it. I think it's very stylish, and I think this is going to be a fan favorite army for definitely years to come. Comparing that to some other models that I've shown you here in the studio in the past. Here's our Revenant, and so that's on a 32, and then you can kind of see he's about character size, about elf, normal elf size, and like I said, that head's probably an elf head too. Womp womp. And then the Stalker. There's the Stalker, so very much bigger, very, very cool looking. He's more on par with like a ogre kind of size. And your rank and file troop on a 25 mil base is going to be definitely smaller, but these guys don't feel a lot of pain, and they definitely don't get scared, so that's going to be interesting to see. And then last but surely not least, not in any way, not never, not once, is the Ogre Tyrant. And this guy is a beast. Remember how, I can't even fit him all on the camera there because his pole arm's so big. Remember how I said this reminded me of the design of the older models from like 2004. It went together pretty much the same, but there is a ton of mold lines on this model, just everywhere all at once. The planes, it was just wacky. Like you have mold lines going up here, and then you have mold lines, on here. So all these different like planes, and it's really hard to see. And then like on the bones coming up here, you have to kind of shave them down flat. So I just used a very, sharp X-Acto blade, which probably explains why I'm bleeding or was bleeding from my fingertips. Whenever you change your blade, you immediately cut yourself. That just goes without saying. Great detail work back here on the trophy rack with the little kind of sinew, or I don't know, maybe it's straps. And there's a Stormcast head right there. It's got smashed. I think that was a rumor engine as well. And was that beast gore head, and just a normal human skull right there. So very similar to the Mournfang Cavalry kind of backs. And speaking of Mournfang Cavalry, we have one right here because, well, I play the Fetties. And so this is how he compares to them. So, compared to the Cavalry, they're going to be a little bit smaller. The Ogre Tyrant's going to be a little bit smaller. But when you start comparing them things on foot, which it looks like the Ogres are on 40 mils. I thought they were on 50 mils. I have to check that instruction manual. The Butchers are definitely on 40 because I checked that diagram. He's definitely going to be a little bit bigger than a Butcher because that kind of makes sense. He's the leader guy, but definitely not off-putting at all by the scale. And like I said, he's very, very true to the styling of it. And I really, really like and appreciate the job Games Workshop did, kind of matching these guys up to the older designs, which are definitely older, but I don't think in any way dated. Maybe construction-wise dated, but definitely not dated. I mean, the Beast Claws from 8 years ago, 2011, I think when they came out, still hold their own, design-wise, in my mind, to anything that's out there today. So that's just my opinion, and I play them, so maybe I'm biased. But either way, if you're interested in this box and getting basically the early access to the Bonereaper models, like I said, they're sold out right now, but you can definitely try hitting up Miniature Market or Dice Head Games or your friendly local game store, whichever you prefer, because chances are if you see it and you want it, now's the time to get it, because I seriously doubt we're going to see this box set again, just like Loon Curse. But who knows? We'll probably see some of the releases separate down on the road into 2020. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching our unboxing build of the Feast of Bones starter box set for Age of Sigmar. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on all our videos.